Welcome to Spoiler Talk for Wonderland by Zoya Stage. Let's start at the middle. So I'll probably recap a little bit of this in my wrap up, but you mentioned it during the regular review, right? Like a slow burn.
Yeah.
And you know, the first half of the book is definitely some Shirley Jackson and some The Shining, right? Small family, middle of nowhere, weird shit happens, right?
Yep.
And I'll be honest, through the first half of the book, although it's completely readable, I was a little disappointed because I've read this story, right? I mean, or some version of it. But then, right at the halfway mark, Shaw fucking bites it, and the book takes a fucking turn. And the rest of it is fucking fantastic. I'll speak for myself. My take on it is the rest of it is fantastic. So it's like I got to that point, and then my thoughts on the whole book shifted. It was a long way to go to get there, to be fair. I'm not saying that if it wasn't for the podcast and being committed to reading the book that I would have stopped. I don't think it was bad. It just kind of like rolled along at this pace. Weird thing happens. They question why that happened. Another weird thing happens. They question why that happened. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's some good relationship stuff in there. But, man, this book really fucking turns on her shooting Shaw.
It's funny that you say that because one of my big impressions about this story in general was there is a moment that there's a big shift. And it's a clearly defined moment that there's a shift in the book from how it was going to how it ends up going. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like I was more engaged with the story in the first half when it was more of a mystery than when it was a matter of figuring out how do we deal with the thing in the second half, because that to me kind of felt a little repetitive in a way. Like the mystery is revealed. We know what's going on. We just don't know how to fix it. And it's just a matter of like, try something. It doesn't work. So like, I'm kind of the other side of it, but we both recognize that there's the first half and the second half are not vastly, but like there's definitely a shift. And one of the things that I thought as I was reading it was she's going to get shit about this change. I don't know whether she's going to get shit about the first half or the second half, but like the fact that it shifts, I knew that there was going to be people who complained about how one part of it went. So it's interesting that we both kind of fall on opposite sides.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not that I have a complaint. It's just that it just trudged along, and I talked about my expectations, right? And in the first half, the book's good. It just didn't meet what I was, you know what I mean? That's where I was talking about expectations. Like I had a different expectation. My expectation was probably the second half of the book, you know what I mean? And not the first half. But then when you're reading through 170 pages and you're like, oh, this does feel a lot like The Haunting of whatever, insert family here. But after that, man, for me, the whole thing changed. And we can kind of jump around a little bit. But the first thing that struck me is family members don't die in books like this, in stories like this, right? The whole family winds up defeating the entity, usually through some form of coming together, right? And they overcome and they defeat the bad guy, the bad element. And that didn't even fucking happen, right? So, I mean, I'll say it here. My conclusion score is a 10. I maybe, did I give Survivor Song a 10 for conclusion? I did.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the only 2 10s I have given this year for conclusions. Because I think that the way it ended was fucking perfect.
Are we going to talk about the ending? Is that where we're at?
Sure. Wherever you want. Like I said, we can kind of jump around to wherever we need to.
So I will say that one of the things that I liked was explored so kind of plainly was the idea that the mother who's trying to protect her children isn't listening to the kid to what the kid's saying because the kid's saying something different than what the mother thinks is important. And so like the fact that was explored at great detail, I liked a lot, because Eleanor Queen over time kept saying like, you're not listening, you don't understand. And the turn to the point where Orla was basically consulting Eleanor Queen. I feel like all of that was wonderful. And it made me feel confident that they were going to come to the right conclusion with whatever happened. But that last fucking part at the very end of the book where lightning strikes the car and Orla has this like concern of, did I make the right choice? That would not have landed the way it did if she didn't set up this like communication trust thing that was like pretty present through the second half of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about the ending is that it's ambiguous enough.
Yep.
Without being really ambiguous, right?
It's not Paul Tremblay ambiguous.
No, it is not, for sure. Incidentally, did you notice that she thanks him for his help with the book? Did you read the...
No, I didn't.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that they knew each other. Not that, it's their job to inform me of these things, but I was really surprised to see his name in the acknowledgments. Yeah, the beauty of it is so we're led to believe that this is this evil thing, right? And it turns out that, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But they don't defeat it.
Right.
They kind of absorb it into their family, which is such a great way to end a story that by virtually anybody else would have ended by finding the secret exorcism passage in a book.
Yep.
Some last minute smart thinking to trick the entity into death or going away or something. But no, like just it inhabits part of Eleanor Queen.
Yeah.
So I thought that the ending was absolutely brilliant. Like it brought a closure, but definitely not the one that I was expecting.
I fully agree. And the funny thing is, like, it's not as if she didn't set up the possibility of defeating the entity kind of thing, because like there were the old books, and even there was like the girl with the pentagram in a photo in one of the books, and like so they tried to do the let's research the history to see if it gives us a clue kind of thing, and we're completely frustrated in that effort. So I like the fact that she even made that a possibility, but it was just a possibility that didn't go anywhere. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the ending was just so well planned.
Yeah, and even the scenes where they stay on afterwards, and Eleanor Queen / tree pentagram girl, is like working on her power, and she's not really hiding it from her little brother, and the mom's like concerned about it, but kind of finds it useful, and that she's more fascinated with her child. It's like it changes from being a horror book, which is certainly what it is in the first half, maybe even 3/4, right, into being like magical realism.
For sure.
So it not just has a what we both I think agree is like kind of like a pretty hard shift in the arc of the story, but it almost changes genres like 2/3 of the way through.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, because it does, especially probably in the last, like you said, 25%, lean heavily on I'd say magical realism or something like that, for getting through to the resolution. But that little stinger at the end where she's unsure, that's like that's like some Nightmare on Elm Street, like, you see a claw at the very end kind of thing, and then you hear that like music. That's that's kind of what that makes me think of. It's a very horror little stinger at the end that makes you question what you thought you were pretty sure of.
Sure. So here's a worthless conversation that we can have. What do you think? Do you think that the entity is going to be evil?
Well, I was thinking about this because I knew this was going to be a worthless conversation that we have. And the way the book sets it up is this is the only option for everybody to be safe. And like, it seems to me that if I'm an entity that's lying to someone, I'm going to tell them there's the only way that everybody gets what they want is the way that I want things to go. You know what I'm saying? So like that instills distrust in me about this entity. So for me, I don't think that the entity was being 100% forthright. Yeah, I think that there's some suspicious shit going on.
Yeah, my take on that last thing is that she's just not going to leave the woods, that she's perfectly happy with her small family where they're at. So I don't know that I'm leaning into it being kind of like this is going to go badly. I think that they're not going to leave that house, but that they have the potential for living a life that essentially was going to be the life they were going to wind up living anyway, at least Orla's life, right? Like they moved out there and this was their new home. So I'm not sold on, I know there's not going to be a sequel, but I'm not sold on the sequel that, that Eleanor Queen becomes completely overrun by this entity and is just like destroying shit all over the place. I think that if they stay there, everything will be okay.
Right. I agree. But the insidiousness of it is the fact that like essentially the conflict for this book is not being able to leave. So even if they stay because she's like kind of subtly making it happen, they still haven't escaped. So like they're victims, I guess is the way I look at it.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. That's 100%. I think I was just trying to gauge like
like she's not a monster,
like evil sorceress, like trying to take over the world versus, like this localized impact, kind of thing.
Honestly, like if you like, to me, it occurred to me, and I don't know if this is coming out of nowhere, but like if you wanted to connect it to like thematically something that happens in everyday life, I mean, it could be somewhat of an abusive relationship, like where you don't want the person to leave, and like so you gaslight them or you whatever it is, like you verbally, kind of like it's that kind of thing, but it's a tree.
Yeah,
like a tree spirit.
You send polar bears after them.
You send polar bears.
Yeah, that's
so
if only life were that easy.
It's got all the underpinnings of like a bad relationship that the bad person doesn't want the good person to leave, and so they do all this weird shit. So like, yeah, still not good.
No. Anything else you want to talk about? I know this is a little short for spoiler talk. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about. I just kind of wanted to toss around that ending a little bit and the death of Shaw.
The only other thing that comes to mind is that and maybe I just want you to help me with this part of it, but so the loss of Shaw was it happened kind of in the middle of like the craziest part of the book, and with Orla trying to make things seem as normal for the kids, like doing normal things in the face of like the insanity that's going on kind of made sense and it fit to me, but Shaw dying wasn't super like earth-shattering in my opinion. Losing Tycho for at least part of the book seemed like even less, like Orla seemed really not eager but like willing to just accept that Tycho is dead in a way that I wasn't 100% on board for.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't give it much thought, but the thing that first comes to mind is like he's gone, and I don't think any of us could process at that point in the book that the tree could be holding the kid.
No, right? You couldn't guess that.
You know what I mean? So think about and we know we're reading a book about some supernatural shit. So really, our minds should be open to any possibility, and I don't think that's what I came to. I don't know. I see exactly what you're saying. I'm not sure. I didn't have a problem with it until you mentioned it. I didn't really give it much thought about her reaction.
But honestly, thinking about it, I don't know what, as a writer, like you could have done to maybe make it seem harder for Orla. Like, she walks out to the fence line to like kind of close to where they lost Psycho, even if it's like a fruitless exercise. Like, she feels like she has to, like, that kind of thing. Like, I don't know what she could have done differently to make it seem like a bigger impact for her.
Right.
But, oh, dude, the Christmas presents fucking destroyed me. If you want to talk about, like, oh my God, right? How did you feel about when she was?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
absolutely.
She could feel the little monkey through the wrapping paper, and she described it because she knew what it was. Jesus Christ, it just destroyed me. It killed me.
Yeah, I will say that Shaw dying, Tycho missing. Yeah, I will say that was probably the most like touching part, the most emotional part. I guess touching probably isn't the right word. Probably the most emotional part of the book is that whole, like, she wants to make a Christmas for her little girl, right? But the brother's gone, dead as far as she's concerned, right? Shaw is definitely dead at her own hands. Oh, that's the other thing. I thought no less than 3 times, and I was like, is she gonna fucking do it? Is she seriously gonna fucking do this? Because she'll be my goddamn hero if at some point they fucking ate Shaw because they were out of food. He's outside in the frozen tundra, right? Like the entire time. There's even mention. So I don't know if she was even like quietly hinting at that.
With the, I know what you're talking about.
You know, and I was like,
beef jerky thing or whatever?
Yeah, if they eat Shaw, I gotta tell you, this will put her on a whole other fucked up level. Like Baby Teeth had some fucked up shit going on, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, man, if they've got to eat the husband/father, holy shit. But there were even when she went out hunting, like when she tried her hand at hunting, I was like, she's gonna realize that they've got frozen meat nearby. She's gonna realize it.
Dude, honestly, and it made me think of, there was a page, a chapter, a line somewhere in there. And the way it was written immediately made me think of Father, Son, Holy Rabbit, the Stephen Graham Jones story, where like the father sneaks away to like cut parts of his body off to feed to his kid so the kid doesn't starve. It had that feel. There was that moment where I felt like this is where she would introduce, we're going to eat your dad. Like, even if she didn't like she pretended she caught a rabbit or something like that.
Right. Yep.
Like, that was the moment she could have done it. She just didn't.
I'm glad you also thought that was a possibility. Because I was like, man, am I just that fucking twisted at this point? So if we have Zoje on, and obviously we'll have to, maybe it'll be our first like spoiler talk, like interview portion.
Ooh,
like I kind of want to know. Like,
she thought
did this
about
occur
it.
to you?
Like, she
did this occur to you?
it.
Yeah. Like, what made you not do it? Like that's what I want to know. Not what made you think of it, because we all thought it, But
that's hilarious.
At any rate, that's I think that's it for this edition of Spoiler Talk. Thank you for being a Patreon contributor. We love you and appreciate you, and you guys make it so much easier for us to do this. Just thanks.